A ride in an ambulance could cost you upwards of thousands of dollars, and that's why many people are opting for a much cheaper option like Uber.
But is it worth saving that money? WSBT 22's Dane Murray joins us here in the studio. And Dane, doctors and first responders say the price of not calling 911 really could be your life.
Jennifer and Todd, they say sometimes it's okay to just spend the $20 and call Uber or Lyft. But if it's truly an emergency, 911 could make all the difference.
When an accident happens, who do you call?
I would definitely call my mom. That'd be the first option right off the bat.
I would call my mom, probably.
Most likely my mom or dad.
Probably call my dad. First person on my contacts, though. He always picks up, always reliable.
But what if they don't pick up?
If you're in doubt, call 911.
Emergency room Dr. Byers-Wells says 911 is your best bet.
I think if you feel you're having a serious issue, if you're having a heart attack or stroke, if you're having chest pain or weakness, you need to call an ambulance. Get here as quickly as possible.
It's about getting to the patient quickly, safety and efficiency on the scene, and making sure medical care is administered in a timely manner.
Essentially, it's the first line treatment of an emergency room. So it's an emergency room on wheels.
Mishawaka's Assistant Chief of EMS says his department works hand in hand with local emergency room doctors.
In the case of a severe trauma, they'll go ahead and page in the trauma teams before we ever get there. Or in the case of a stroke, someone needs to get to the CT scanner right away. They can clear that CT scanner before we ever get there.
But when it comes to notifying the hospital, checking vitals, and stabilizing broken bones,
1, 2, 3.
Some may argue the care doesn't come cheap. An ambulance ride can cost hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. That's where ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft have come into play.
Uber would be really cheap compared to a 911 because you could be paying a lot of money for a 911.
According to a study from the University of Kansas, in more than 750 cities, ambulance usage dropped by at least 7% in cities with Uber. It's a trend happening all across the U.S. But is it safe?
If you're worried about the cost of the ambulance transportation, but it's an emergency, that needs to be the last thing we're thinking of.
Jeff Zielinski is the Chief Operations Officer at inHealth Integrated Care. He's transported patients across town and across the country. He says sometimes it only takes minutes for a situation to become life or death.
There was a vehicle accident. It was actually a vehicle that got hit by a train, and so we responded on scene for that. Once we got it loaded into the back of the ambulance, I found out that he was in a very critical condition as he started losing consciousness. And at that point in time, we did get a helicopter transport to get him to the nearest trauma center as quickly as possible.
Those few extra minutes in caring hands are critical. It's when they opt to not call 911, the situation can get worse.
If they'd called an ambulance 30 minutes ago and gotten here 15 or 20 minutes sooner, could they be in a better position than they are right now?
And when the situation becomes dire, Zielinski says you want the trained professionals on your side.
In your ambulance is going to be an emergency medical technician and a paramedic. All of those are qualified individuals. When it comes to your Uber drivers, they likely aren't even aware of CPR.
A statement from Uber seems to echo the doctor and first responders. It says it's important to note that Uber is not a substitute for law enforcement or medical professionals. In the event of any medical emergency, we encourage people to call 911. The people we spoke to agree. In an emergency, 911 over Uber.
First thing I would do would be to call 911 because, they're going to be the fastest to respond.
Well, first off, I'd call 911.
I'd probably call 911 because, they're professionals. They know what they're doing.
I would call 911.
Trained professionals. I've known a lot of EMT, law enforcement type guys. They know what they're doing. You call Uber, you call Ride Lyft, it's a crapshoot. Nice enough people, I'm sure, but that's not who you want in an emergency.
The bottom line, sometimes the price is worth it.
If it's truly an emergency, the cost of not getting there, could be your life.
Dr. Wells says there are times it's appropriate to use a ride-sharing service, like for a minor illness or injury. Just make sure you aren't putting yourself, your driver, or the other people on the roads in danger.
Yeah, all good to think about there. And Uber says it does help out in some types of medical or situations.
Absolutely, yeah. It actually has a national partnership with the Red Cross, and it gives rides and donations during community emergencies.
All right, so there is a use for it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Dane, thanks.